Hey guys, SAABNATIC here, and just a quick heads up, the way you can find out what kind of dry belt you need is really easy. You just take a look on the dry belt that is currently on the engine, and it has the OE number, the two different lengths, so be careful when checking around to buy one. Okay, now to safety.
When working on your car, especially when you're doing something underneath the car, it's really important to do the correct procedures on how to jack up your vehicle. I have 3 steps in my setup. One of them is of course jacking up the car with a jack on the proper positions where you can lift them. On the front here, there's only one place, and that is right there. And that's the original factory lifting point when I lift up the car from the factory lines to not ruin the gearbox or the engine. And you have of course on the sides shown here. Mine are a bit rusty, so I have taken the procedure of doing the old trick of placing the front right tire, where we're going to work on, underneath the car, to make sure that if in case of the jack takes a break or the jack stand either falls over or any other circumstances, the wheel will take the damage, but it will make sure that the car doesn't fall to the ground or damage anything from here. And also you really have to remember that whenever you're lifting your car to the front, you need to pull up your handbrake. If your handbrake doesn't work, you have to get something to block off the wheel so it won't be able to roll backwards or forwards. And the area we're going to work on today is on the front left part of the engine bay, where we are going to have to remove the airbox just for making it easier to reach the dry belt. And we're gonna have to remove some plastic in the wheel arch. This part, gonna have to carefully just either unscrew it entirely or just flip it out to the side so we can see the rest of the dry belt and the components related to it. There are 2 different styles of screws. There is a 2 8mm, one directed here, and one underneath the engine bay. Right there. Also gonna be a 10mm situated right here. There's one. Not the cleanest screw. So place it right there. And then now underneath the engine. There. And again, I'm going to loosen a bit up, tighten once again, really just get the dirt out of the threads. There's actually supposed to be, as you could probably see right there, that's a hole for a previous screw. Yet again, loosen and tighten back and forwards. Just like that, we have the first cover off. Look at that. That's one oily and greased filled engine bay. Now, we're going further to take off this frontal part of the wheel arch so we can see the rest of the front area of the lower part of the Serpentine dry belt area. And the frontal part of the wheel arch is held by actually multiple fasteners and screws. However, as I previously mentioned, age of the cars tend to show the trauma and how they were used and serviced, so it seems like I'm either missing some parts. Not up here, but underneath right here. As you can see, I only got one of the 2 screws, or there's actually a pin here, but this screw is just completely loose. Like, it won't do anything, it's just stuck in there. 2 screws are definitely there. We're going to have to loosen them. And really important to be careful, as these are parts to holding the front fender. You don't want to break them, or may actually leave the car in a worse state than you try to fix it on. So first take a brush and remove all the dirt in the threads and in the head of the Torx screws, and it's going to use a T25. Now, I've already taken the liberty of carefully untightening them, so mine will actually be able to get off. Now I just got one clip here, and that's going to be, well, it seems like it's going to be everything on my edition of the SAAB. I myself was blind. There's also one up here, which you need to be able to take off to actually get enough flex to just carefully take the front part of the wheel arch liner and just pull it over to the side. Oh, by the way, there's one screw that is hidden underneath here when you're going to remove it. So 3 screws, one here, one that used to be here, which is now just broken off, it seems like, and one underneath. And I haven't effectively just moved the liner for the wheel arch. We can now fully see the area we are going to work on. Time to go upstairs and take out the engineer intake. So we are now upstairs. There are a couple of parts we need to remove. That is the airbox and the hose for intake part of the airbox. There are 4 screws that are attached to the upper cover of the airbox, so you won't be able to pull them all the way out, and those are T25. So a hidden latch behind the hose area of the intake that you just take on the air side. You just take your finger and just loosen it. You're just going to have to we might as well just do it right here now. Going to just have to take this part of a hook that's situated right here. Simply just pull forwards. That's now loosened. Now, having loosened the 4 screws, that one is actually hidden a bit there in the light right there. We're just going to have to simply take a flathead screwdriver and loosen the hose clamp, disassemble the air intake. Well, lifting off the cover after you have loosened everything, and you first pull from the air hose part and then you can lift up. But don't be brutal to it. There's a connector to the mass effort sensor which follows because it's actually connected with a wire loom here. So pull up and just lay it to the side. This is your air filter. If you're going to do air filter as well, this is the time to do it, but we're going to take off the bottom tray of the air filter box. And now comes to the interesting part, because already here you can see a lot more. You can actually just start right here. You don't have to take off this part, but it's a lot easier having more room doing jobs like this, as there's really no more than 5 centimeters of or maybe like 2 inches of area for your hands to work down in. This air intake is connected at multiple areas. There's one 10mm nut right there, and there's supposed to be 2 10mm nuts right here and there. The airbox is actually connected with a pipe down to the lower part of the car. Now that's part loose, and this is the tricky part. As when you go to return it, this has to enter down there. That's the hole it sits in. Now, finally, we're going to be able to work on the car. We come to the tricky part. Behind here is the tensioner, the one with a square opening, which is right there. You're going to take a half-inch extension or a Serpentine special tool, and you're going to insert it down there. You're going to actually have to also have something to keep it in position when we have turned the tensioner clockwise, and that's either a 4mm Allen key or a 6mm drill, as the Haynes manual recommends, as there is a hole on this part of the tensioner, and as when we put force and turn it clockwise, we'll be able to push it all the way in, and it will keep it in the service area, as we might call it. And by the way, if you don't have a specialty tool or is having issues with getting actually enough force on the extension to pull, just attach your ratchet. Just make sure it's actually short enough, and you can just add force. and twist it. So you're going to have to use both hands there. I won't be able to film it, but again, you need something to set into lock the tensioner, as well as being able to lift and then push it all the way in, the locking pin. And you can relax your force on the ratchet or your tool, and now be able to actually take off the Serpentine belt. This is how it looks when it is actually no longer in tension. We'll now make the belt loose. Now, this is the point of no return. The way you handle this area will depend on how long it will take. So if you do not have the pictures, take a look in your manual, or if you do not have the manual at all, it's now time to take a cardboard or a piece of paper and start writing the way it is connected. Just also as a security, take pictures, lots of pictures from both up and beneath. This is how it looks like based on the manual. This is with the air conditioning on a gasoline engine. This is without. This is a diesel engine with air conditioning. This is the early model of the gasoline engine with the air conditioning. It has dual idler wheels. The new engines from 2000 onwards did not have it, so it goes just on a straight line up here. So easy just to start with the water pump, and it continues downwards. With the air compressor, it loops up, down, up again, and to the left. So we've done everything you can up here for now. It is time to go underneath, pull it all off without any issues. Here's the compressor, as seen as such. It now goes back up again, so up we go. We made a complete sandwich here. We're going to be able to pull it further off the idler, and as well as here. Just finish the removal. It may take some time, and there's no rush on this part. As you can see, ears are a bit difficult to reach, so use the entire engine room to get it loose, and you might end up getting a bit stuck somewhere, but that's fine. Just take your time. And not long after, it is finally off. Now, this is the part where we're going to have to do some comparison to old and new parts, and it also is a good time for you to take a look at the condition of your, well, the whole system in the driveline area, such as the water pump, the bearing on the idler rollers, the alternator, which is down, and the tensioner, for example. Now, I do not have any spare parts for now. I'm just simply going to swap out the belt, but it's a good time for me to find out if I may have to take another service at this part of the engine sooner rather than later. And already one area that I find is one of the idler wheels. There's supposed to be some resistance with the idler wheels. I don't know if you can hear as well. There's a crackle sound, or you can definitely hear something is rubbing. So that's part of the sound that comes when driving the car. It's more like a whirl than anything else. And it's also time to take a look at the grooves in the system. There's a lot of dirt down there, and that will also affect the positioning and how the car reacts. So it's time to just go over them all, spin them around, find out what's going to have to be done in the future, and also take a look at the old belt. Now, unfortunately for me, I was expecting a lot more that was quite worn, but it is not cracked. The only thing that I do know is actually it has rubbed against the car or the engine for some time. It definitely isn't really new, I have gone and done my inspection on my car, and I will have to get a new idler wheel and take a look at other parts of the components. But I did notice that when I was cleaning, it is marked with 6.9. Also, I did not have brake clean, so I used the label off, and I cleaned out the grooves in the wheels, the bearings that does have them, and I just cleaned the side here. Okay, so this is my new dry belt, and luckily it is also marked with the OE number. And as a general rule, you want to be able to read the text when it is attached to the engine, so we're going to place the belt in this direction. We now just have to follow the correct pattern for the engine that you got and I got with yet again the the AC compressor. So, but yeah, now it is more like reverse. This is probably a part that will be really difficult to film, but it is just to start from. Just try to wiggle it down and then try to attach everything. Okay, 20 minutes later, or actually a bit faster, 15 minutes later, I got the new belt on, but the tensioner is still in the service position. And just to get some comments on the way I did it, I started from the front, where I looped it down and around the AC compressor. For you, that would just be, if you do not have AC, that would just be to this part. And then I went up and around like that, this, and then down to the main area, and then I just placed this around the power steering and continued all the way straight. And the most difficult part was actually getting it still on the idler roller and then getting it at last on the alternator. It is tight. You're just gonna have to end up taking the drive line and twist it, so instead it's laying, it goes aside, down, and then under. So now it actually will go all the way. Really important to check that it is correctly in place, and also make sure that the rollers that does not have grooves, it is placed all the way in. If it hangs halfway, it might damage something. So just do, when you get it on, just do a once over, and then we're going to have to place everything back, the air intake, the liner, get the wheel on, set it back down again, and start the engine. And with the tensioner back online without any pin holding it in, it is now going to be tight. Won't be able to take it off. And now it's just, once again, take a look, make sure every groove is filled with the belt, it doesn't hang halfway on any roller or anything like that. And now it's just time to reattach everything. Starting up here with the airbox. As I mentioned, it is connected to this pipe. It actually inserts inside. So, well, some people will find it a bit finicky if you haven't done it a lot of times. It is just as simple as entering front to first, then attach this down here.
Yes, I did it. Now, I want to get clean, change clothes, and I want to go to the beach. Let's go.